recording. What's up, dude?
Ryan.
So today, relationships. This is a bold topic, dude, but I guess we
Yeah.
don't really shy away from those. So,
No.
relationship. The reason we want to talk about it is because we see what they've become and what they are, in our opinion, is something that is really not very well understood, that we need to really re-examine how we approach them. You know, from all the rom-coms you see where you just walk away into the sunset at the end. I don't really feel like relationships are like that, where it's
Zero.
something where you find that magical someone, your life just has purpose now, you complete me is a good way to think of it, where I don't think it's that way. So to start with relationships, I think a key starting point is to talk about what you need in order to have a good relationship. And I think that involves this quote that I was reading where it basically says, you have to understand that in the end, you're on your own, regardless of how great the relationships you have in your life. Meaning that you have to be solid and secure in yourself, where you're not reaching out for people to fulfill these needs that you need to have fulfilled yourself. Otherwise, you just use them in a way of like, oh, I need this person to complete me. You know, it's the Tom Cruise moment when you're walking in and like, what I feel coming out of you when I'm around you is something I need. I realize I need that. You're the person to give that to me, right?
Yeah.
And then you latch onto that person like a leech, just hoping that they're going to give you that blood that you're after.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of like, man, yeah, you know, I think when you come to relationships, you need to be a little more secure yourself. So let's start there, dude. And then we'll kind of dive into what real relationships look like, the different kinds. But
Yeah.
I think starting point is when you approach a relationship, how do you approach it in a way where you can actually
Less vampire-y.
and have a real relationship?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
No, I love how you introduced it. I'm gonna go off the vampire tangent. There was that billboard I was talking about earlier outside, and it said something about feeding America and reducing starvation. And obviously it's talking about hunger from a physical standpoint, but I think, and I've thought about the topic of hunger literally and metaphorically way too much, because of the old eating disorder in high school, and lucky to be alive because of how bad it was. And ultimately it's because, I mean, I've acknowledged this before in prior conversations, that I was starving for love. And I think relationships, the fuel of them, the fundamental like math of why everyone's calculating whether or not I should get into a specific relationship, and what is fundamentally driving my desire to be with any specific person, what's magnetizing me towards them.
Sure.
The reason why it has become a very Vampire Diaries like teen novel for everyone on Facebook and otherwise in real life is because we are starving for love. Ultimately, fundamentally, everything comes down to love, and we have no idea how to manage that appetite. And because of the McDonald's, Taco Bell mentality we have approached to our physical diet, we approach that to the immediate gratification of, I'm going to drive through this person, I'm going to get a gallon of fucking Mountain Dew, and I'm going to drown these 73 chalupas down. So that's what we look at. We gorge on immediate gratification in other human beings. We sink our vampire teeth into them, and we suck them for everything they are. And after we're so fucking bloated with sodium and caffeine, and we come down from that high, we go back home. We're like, oh my God, the reason that was horrific is because it was my intentions for being magnetized towards this relationship were utterly selfish. I wanted to taste something. I wanted to feel alive. I was magnetized towards this thing. And at the heart of us going through the drive-through of relationships and satiating that appetite that's fueling the need to be in that specific relationship is because we're so fucking selfish.
It's true.
Me. I want the Big Mac. I want the chalupa. Can you fry that tortilla twice? It's not even tortilla. It literally is like a Spanish pancake fried, soaks up the oil. Like you just look at people and you're like, I want to just suck the blood out of them. And the reason why I feel so empty is because of that quote. Is I intrinsically think and have been taught that my fulfillment and my ability to sustain relationships, the thing that's going to fill that void for the need for a relationship, is external. And what's so beautiful about that quote, and I was literally talking to someone about this yesterday, is until you understand how to have a relationship with yourself and what that means, it's never going to be fulfilling externally. If you go to seek something thinking that you don't already have it within or the capability to create something within, if you go to take, you're going to be empty. And that's the thing. At some point in a relationship, the other party involved is going to realize that, and it's usually through horrific fights, that eventually the culmination of most relationships ending in divorce, and the whole premise of a prenup is saying, I like you a lot right now, but I know I might not get the thing that I like a lot eventually. And when I stop getting the thing I want, I'm out. So we approach everything, even contractually in marriages, we approach everything conditionally. Conditionally seeking the thing. So super weird ass fucking Taco Bell McDonald's approach to that. But that's how I see it, is we are vampires, but I don't think we are innately supposed to be vampires. We don't know how to sustain our own soul's appetite intrinsically. And the biggest lie is that we have to go take it. We have to go get the blood source. Like us sustaining our own lives, being an intrinsic blood donor and not going to suck the life out of other people. How do I be at peace with myself and not need to find the peace in other people?
That is, that's the question, dude. Where, and that's the key thing, because otherwise, like, if you don't realize that you're just gonna, go and vampire somebody, dude. I mean, you look at people and who they become friends with, and I can look in my life and see who I've become friends with and something like that, right? A lot of times we find the people that bring out something in us. They bring out that fun, they bring out the joy, and especially in romantic relationships, they bring that love where they're just like, dude, I feel like when I'm with this person, that I'm alive, right? That it's just like those endorphins flowing in your mind. You're just like, this feeling is amazing. I love it. I want this more. This is why I have to be with this person. And I feel like when it gets like that, it's something that's so dangerous, because if we don't have that in the first place, and that we rely on them like you're talking about, it's that relationship is going to be so dependent upon your feelings. And as soon as that goes away, like you're saying, then it's just like, I don't really need to be around you anymore, because everything was built on that. It's gone now.
I've depleted you of the blood supply that I was seeking in the first place.
Exactly. Where it's just such a poor way to have real relationships. So it comes back to, so when you have those feelings and you meet those people and they spark that out of you, like that really fun person you love to go be with, and they're just like, dude, when that person's around, I just love going to do anything with them. They just make life happen. So what does that mean when you have that going on, where you feel that spark, right? What is that telling you in your soul when you have it, when that person comes around? I guess that's my question for you.
Well, I am so far from being a healthy person in relationships, because I've been on a pretty chaotic, dysfunctional roller coaster of getting to know myself. And I've concluded that same quote. It's so funny how I was literally talking to someone about that yesterday. It's because that's what I finally realized, is the reason why there's any degree of toxicity in any relationship that I have, or there's dysfunction. It's ultimately, I'm the common denominator. The dysfunction is in proportion to your being honest about, I'm here to take from you, and when you're not giving the thing I want, not going to work. So I think fundamentally what drives, I mean, that's the initial question, is what drives us towards specific, or what magnetizes us towards specific people, is we all fundamentally, and this is, I don't know if it's a disease within us that we were born with, and I think a lot of religion talks about meaning and purpose and fulfillment, and this creature that we are, and then these skin suits. Like, we are, on a core level, we are brutally relational beings, and I think it is so obvious in the unfortunately, deeply unfortunately, in the suicide rate, because you look at the spectrum of a soul that no longer feels connected.
Yeah.
They're from just a creature standpoint, like looking at biology and saying this human being has on a soul level believe they are void of being connected to other humans, and that's typically the breaking point for someone taking their life. And you look at the other end of the spectrum, I think people can be equally empty and be surrounded by people all the time. And there's been points in my life where I've never felt so alone being around so many people. And it's because the most deepest, thorough appetite that I want to satiate in my soul every day is, do you love me? Am I worth being loved? And that is the ultimate, whatever component in magnetism is drawing you towards people, is the reason why you stated, when I'm around this person, I feel alive, I feel fueled, I feel so energized, and I want to snort another line of Ryan, and that's why I'm here this morning. And I'm just like, oh my God. And like when I leave, I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna need like another dime bag of Ryan's heart next weekend. And not promoting drugs unless they're in someone's soul, but it's, and Carl Jung talks about this. He says you're never going to be less of what you are, and what we are is, we will never escape the selfish nature that fuels everything we do. So my conclusion thus far in my life is I'm always trying to do the least selfish thing I can do, realizing that I do what I do because I'm thinking of self. I want to create moments that make sense to me. But I believe there is a healthy level of selfishness that promotes health. And I've realized in my life, when I'm being selfish and giving myself love and fueling my own growth and compassionately saying, fuck everyone, in a compassionate way, meaning when people are wanting my time and toxic people that I don't know how to get out of my life, when I finally come to the point where I'm like, I need to love me. I need to stop giving the commodity of my energy to everyone else because I don't know how to love me. Yeah. And I'm fucking exhausted of it.
Yeah.
So I realized that me being selfish has led to growth in a lot of other people's life. And I realized the more I'm selfish with learning how to love myself in the relationship with myself, the relationships around me actually stem from they're actually fueled from a healthy place, because I've detached from the vampire thing. I started in a non-masochistic way, vampiring myself and fueling my own blood source. So, sweet Jesus, my whole point is this: I believe we're fueled to create moments of love, but in creating the moments of love, the transaction and the fueling of the commodity, if you think about currency transactions, when you invest your energy into someone, ultimately you're trying to create a transaction, hoping that the receiving of the investment comes back. There's that emotional stock market we've talked about. Yeah, I'm giving you my time and my energy, and there's a fundamental part of me that hopes I get a good return on my investment. Yeah, but I believe the highest version of self we can attain is to be so satisfied and know who you are, and be so at peace with that you can go give from a place of overflowing. Sure. And say, here's some blood, here's my soul, here's my heart, and I know what it is, and I don't need you to tell me what I am, because your opinion, it's not that it doesn't matter, it's that I don't need you to define who I am, because I actually took the time to know who I am. And I can go spend time with people and love them and not need anything from them. If they try to take blood from me, if I see value in it, I'll give it to them. I believe it'll help them, I'll give it to them. But if they're going to take from me to take, and I know it's going to do nothing, I care about my energy too much. I'm going to compassionately say, nothing. I'm not going to interact with them. So relationships are fueled by the selfishness we have and will never be vacant of needing to find love and meaning. To whatever degree you're going to seek that, I believe that is the fuel source. We're pulling into the gas station of meaning in life, and we want to fill up on love, and we don't know how to create that Tesla solar power love within ourselves. Sure. But in your opinion, what magnetizes you towards relationships in the past and what has created dysfunction in those relationships,
Mm.
and where you're at now, to be at a place where you think it's a good idea to hang out with someone like me, like I'm clearly a big transition, I'm sure, in the type of friends that you have and the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
What fuels that now, and why do you seek specific relationships?
Well, I think now, what it's about is I'm not so much gaining as it is to give, because I think before, when I was in so many different small groups and groups and talking to so many different people during the week, and really, I guess, trying to have a lot of people in my life that could speak into it and help me. And that's what it was all about. It was all about me, 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 me. I wanted I wanted people to love and care about me. And when I can step back and look at it now, that's mainly what it was about. I enjoy talking to them. I love being able to help and listen.
Where did the joy come from? Why did you enjoy that? Where was the joy found in that transaction?
Well, the joy came from when I would get from being around this person, which is just so selfish, where this is that vampire state where you realize that you were trying to get something out of this person, and it's not a real relationship, because it's that what you were talking about, that trading, right? It's almost like that horse trading thing. It's like, hey, you make me feel good, I'll make you feel good. Let's just do that back and forth, and then we'll walk away and be like, man, I really love Tony, man. Tony's awesome, because when I'm with Tony makes me feel so good.
Yep.
And then it's just, you realize, I guess what I came to is more of just like, well, it's not really real. You're both just kind of using each other. It's kind of like this prostitution of friendship.
Yeah.
It's a way of looking at it. So I think, to me, it was realizing how many of those types of people I had in my life and start cutting them out, one by one, just saying like, yep, this isn't it. And you just watch how many drop. They're just like dead tree limbs, and just walk.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, that thing's pretty much sheared. So yeah, when I look at it, it's realizing that the way I was built and the people I was drawing towards me were trying to fill this void that we're never, ever going to be able to fill. And so it was all based on how I felt when I was around that person and everything else. So it was something that, thank goodness, I feel like I was able to understand and kind of step away from, where like we said in the beginning, learning to understand, like, why am I not okay being by myself? Like, why don't I have that feeling like flowing out of me, where I love and accept myself? Why do I have to have it from other people? Why do I care about what this person, like, if that person love and accepts me, then does that mean I could love and accept myself? So I think that was square one for me, is learning, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And then only out of figuring that out, and it's still a process to keep figuring out, where I think I read this book. I can't remember the title of it. It was either a book or a pamphlet, but it was basically just this really simple book about just this dude who figured out such a key to life is learning to love yourself, and how it completely rocked his world, such a simple thing, and how it changed all of his relationships and everything else. And I'm looking at him like, dude, do I do that? Do I love myself? How do you even love yourself?
So abstract.
And I'm like, yeah. And then you kind of realize, nope, you don't. I'm kind of getting it from everyone. I'm looking for it out of my wife, who's like the linchpin of it, right? Because we loved each other enough to get married, and we're going to give that each other back and forth, filling each other's love tank. If you think of the 5 languages of love, where you become expectant of like, hey, you need to fill my tank. But it's like, well, but is that really fair? Like, is that her job to be the gas keeper of my heart?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like that's a really fair expectation out of marriage. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think when it comes to relationships, it's something that if we aren't right ourselves, we cannot help but just seek to pull something from people. Like you're going not to give, you're going to gain something. Yeah. And that's the key piece, where that needs to be flipped. Like, I think real relationships only come when you have that to give. You're going to give. Like, I'm so secure with myself that I don't need anything from you. I'm just with you because I like you. I want to be with you. I want to be able to be there for you. And it's coming out of that, not like I need you to be my friend. Yeah. And there's a quote I wanted to read you and get your thoughts on, because it kind of hinted on a lot of what you just said. I'll read it again. It's kind of a intimidating quote.
Oh, good.
Okay, but it says relationships are sacred because they provide life's grandest opportunity, indeed its only opportunity, to create and produce the experience of your highest conceptual self.
Yeah.
So
Straight up.
So what do you think about that?
Cool. It's not exactly a softball pitch. It's like
That's
a
what I said. I'll read it
107 mile an hour sniper pitcher. Like it's pointless to even swing at. I couldn't agree more, and I have learned it the hard way. And I want you to read it again.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Relationships are sacred because they provide life's grandest opportunity, indeed its only opportunity, to create and produce the experience of your highest conceptual self.
Yeah. It's that sacred part. It's I do have really bad attention issues, but I wanted you to read it again because it's very important, and it's talking about a sacred environment, and I believe I'm gonna say some hippie shit.
Go for it.
It makes sense in my head, but I apologize ahead of time because most of what makes sense in my head doesn't make sense when it comes out. I believe whether or not humans are just the most grandest science experiment from some intergalactic, like, fucked up humor aliens that are just watching us like a cockfight, watching us kill each other.
Sure.
It doesn't matter, but what matters is I acknowledge that I'm one of the chickens fighting in the cockfight, and I want to survive. Yeah. And I believe that environment of that cage fight, we're trying to survive as chickens. Because we run around with our heads cut off. We're bananas, man.
Yeah.
We are an incredibly complex creature. So, from my perception, I believe the environment it provides is to be, in an emotional sense, in the cockfight of life. It's so crazy. To be the chicken that dies in here. A relationships, if you commit to it and you try to dissect how to survive this cockfight, you have to die in here. Meaning you have to look in the mirror and see that there's, and psychologists will talk about the shadow self, the dark self, the everything you try to hide from everyone, the desires, the curiosities, the selfish nature, all of the things that are inside of you, to look at it in the mirror and just own it and stop pretending that you're something you're not. And what that allows you to do is realize you have the capacity to be just as fucked up as everyone else you judge in life. And all the relationships you have, all the prejudices, all the resentment, all the bitterness, all the unforgiving feelings that you think you're the judge and the juror of everyone else living their life, you have the capacity to be everything everyone else is being. And with your relationship to humanity, and whether it's a friendship, a marriage, until you have the courage to stop trying, especially in a marriage, it's such a, as you know, it's a brutal test of how selfish you are. And in studying, is it about me and my needs, or is this an environment, like is this a sacred environment for me to think less of myself and give of myself? And if I give of myself, is it going to be from a place of being a martyr, or is it going to be from a place of overflowing because I see the good in providing for a partner? Sure. And then you have kids, and then you realize, holy shit, I'm even more selfish than I realized I am. Yeah. So there's another level of dying. This is that cockfight dying thing that I'm hoping makes sense at the end of this tangent, is you realize, in order for me to sustain this little itty bitty life, there's something changing in me that's healing that vampire need. I want to give of myself to keep this little life alive. And there is a dying necessary to stop thinking about your needs. And you realize, for me to be the most powerful source of meaning and love to my daughter, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm so owning who I am, the shadow self, all of my ridiculousness and ugliness and the ease in which I can say I am a disgusting human being and have the capacity to be so disgusting in a public format is me sacrificing myself for the hope that whoever watches this will be encouraged and provoked to say, I don't need to hide anymore. I don't need to hide in my marriages. I don't need to hide in my friendships. I don't need to pretend to be something I'm not on Facebook. I can willingly die to the need to be something I am not. And own completely what I am. And you can be a fucking rooster in the cockfight and realize there is no fight.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing. The end of this insane tangent is this. And this is going to be one of the weirdest parts of it. I blame, in a compassionate way, I blame Jesus for ruining. I know you're looking at me like deer in the headlights.
Yeah, I'm like, turn to Jesus. Wasn't expecting that. Go for
I
it.
know, and this is, trust me, it's just wait.
I want to hear it. Go.
I know. I just imagine this cockfight. Everyone's like, "Holy shit, the little chicken's winning!" They're watching this crazy cockfight. Anyways, what Jesus did to my family and the ideology of what he intended to teach, and since then, what it has become in our world is the polar opposite, I believe. But what it did is pre-Jesus, like, not to get in theology, it's like there's a bunch of rules if you want to be connected to the God of the universe. Yeah. There's all these rules that you have to live by to be pure and be a decent human being and be valued. And our nature says, fuck yeah, I know how to win. I want to win. We become competitive. We remove ourselves and we start telling ourselves, I can become something that I'm not. And I'm going to start pretending that to death. And I'm going to hide the darkness in me. And Jesus came along and said, actually, like, if you want to connect to God, you need to recognize that you're a child of God, and you need to extend the love that is created from within. And I think it's all about that quote. And since then, we've totally fucked up that quote and everything Jesus has taught. But in my family, it was this schizophrenic, bipolar, like, pretend to be this pure thing, and then behind closed doors, horrifically live out the other side of it. So I grew up being terrified of being less than perfect. And in life, like, in our whole Western culture was built off of the Bible. And as a byproduct, it's created racism and division, and it's divided people in rules, and you have mega churches. So what the ideas of Jesus has done has created fucking chaos. It's totally Jesus's fault that everything's ruined. No, but that's the whole, like, being a victim of, like, Jesus is one of my greatest heroes, and I think he's a super gangster. But it's the whole principle of, we can take something so pure and so beautiful, and he literally believed what he believed to death. So I think he fully, that's why he was called the child of God. I think he fully manifested sacrifice of self to say, here's the truth. This is what it is. Yeah. And we've taken that truth and just shat on it. And that's where we have, I think Jesus was the teacher of the most pure, soul-satiating nourishment. Yeah. And now we have fucking Taco Bell, Jesus, of super churches, mega churches being like, whoa, Jesus this. And, like, it's bananas, man. So it's a unique way of saying the environment in which you can manifest the highest version of self is getting in the fucking cockfight, not blaming Jesus for ruining the world, but realizing Jesus came to teach us, and a lot of other spiritualists have said in that quote, for you to manifest the highest version of yourself, you have to have the courage to realize your life is not letting other people define your value. You need to go inside and realize who you are, and the quality of your life is going to be contingent on you establishing where your value is and you understanding what that is, and not letting it be conditionally graded from other people's opinion.
I like that. So let me ask you, to talk about that death you were talking about. Is that death you're talking about because when you're in a real relationship, that it's almost like ego cannot survive? Is that close?
You tell me.
Well, I think that so we've talked about how relationships can be tainted and and be something where we're trying to gain something from somebody, right? So to think of what they can be, like that quote's talking about, right, as this sacred place of growth and opportunity to see your true self, when a relationship is pure, where you're so secure in the love of yourself that you're able to love other people and have that relationship of give and give, right? And not just take and take. That's when I feel like what happens with ego, and by ego I mean that little person we've built in our head that, like, I need to do this for love, I need to get this, I need to be this way, I need to look this good. Like, that person can't survive, because when you're in that relationship with someone who loves themselves and is looking at you that way, then that tends to erode, because you realize you don't need it anymore. That thing you've built as that framework for acceptance that we do as children, and we do as we grow up in this world, that we have to figure out how, like, what we have to do to get praise and all of that, where that doesn't need to be there anymore. Because relationships, when they're pure, when someone, you could sit across the table from somebody and they're not seeking to gain anything from you, they're just there because they love themselves and they love you, that it can be something where it's your safe place. You realize that, man, I don't need to be this, I don't need to be anything. And that's the part where the freedom comes, because you can just be you, and you don't have to be anything else. You're not seeking, like, I'm looking at you like, oh man, he's a basketball player who's made all this money, and I really care what he thinks. If he loves and accepts me, man, then that's gold, right? Where you just look at somebody and you're just there to listen and you're there to give. And to me, where the growth comes from that is it creates this intimate place of where someone, you could actually look at somebody and see someone and see who they are in a way where it's freeing, right? Because there's so many relationships we have that aren't like that. They're so based on, like, you trying to show yourself in some way. That's why you have to tell everybody all this awesome shit that you did, or and it's all based on, like, building you up, so this person you're talking to will be like, oh fuck yeah, man, that was awesome. Yeah, I like that, right? Instead, where you don't have to be anything, you just sit there and, like, be yourself and give. And that's the point where, like, that's where relationships are so life-giving, because that's when they become something of healing and transformation, and the way I feel like it's intended. But the hard part is getting to that point, because it can only ever get there when you're sitting across the table from someone who's so secure in themselves with who they are and where they're at, and so loving and accepting that they realize they're imperfect, where I don't need to try to get you to like me. Yeah. I'm just going to be me. And if you like it, great. If you don't, great. Right? Yeah. And that's the difference, where it's like to think about, like, I think the next thing for me that goes in my mind is marriage, and kind of what that is, and what we've made it is, like, we've made it where we find someone on this planet, whether we're attracted to, or we have those feelings come out of us when we're around them, that just, like, that infatuation, that drunk on love, that sense of, like, man, my life's got purpose and meaning now that this person's there. And we just latch onto it and we kill it. We drain that thing dry. And it's just such a horrible thing, because, like, in the end, unless you can have it really be like this pure relationship where you're getting married to give and you're secure in yourself, where it's like that video you sent me was so great, with, I forget that actress's name, where she's just, like, talking about love, and she's just like, yeah. Where she's just like, I just want someone to share my love of myself with. We don't think like that.
The most honest statement
No.
ever.
Yeah, we think, like, I want someone to love me for me and give me the love that I don't have. Mm-hmm. Or it's such an ass backwards way of doing it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, dude, when I think about, like, real relationships and stuff, it's a matter of being so secure in yourself that you could sit across the table from anybody and see them and help in turn create this environment that becomes the sacred place, because it's a safe place. Yeah. And I think that's something I feel like we try to do here, where we're sitting here talking and having a conversation about these topics, whatever it is, and it's in a way that we don't really have to prove anything. We're just talking about them in a way where, like, someone can nuke us for whatever we say, and it happens. But the point being is like we're so secure, and that's the thing that you want to project to other people, where it's like that can happen for you too. And don't fall folly to thinking that like some person is going to come and fill that void.
But but the specificity of what we're doing right now between specifically you and I is so important to focus on, because the reason why you and I come snort lines of each other, and in the same way she said in that video, she's like, I want someone to enjoy the process of me loving me as well. And that perceived selfishness and that like ego fueled statement, it sounds like, and it's like, no, I found someone in you, in the most heterosexual brohood, you know, I found something that helps me find me.
Sure.
Yeah. Is essentially what she's saying. And the fearlessness in which I know I can be myself vocally is infinite, because you've chosen to be secure with yourself, and you've chosen not to need to approach me with insecurity. I've never felt from you, Jordan, like that's inappropriate. I mean, you've done a lot of like deer in the headlights looks when I've said things and I do it inside myself, and yeah, it's all justified. But behind the deer in the headlights look, I know there's a heart of infinite acceptance in that state of being surprised that no one says that. Don't say that. Good God, fuck, I forgive you ahead of time. Right. But I know that you accept me, which gives the infinite trust that I know I can be me. That is the environment in which complete freedom exists.
Sure.
Your fullness of humanity, my fullness of my humanity, to what we both know it to be at this point after X amount of years, and our willingness to explore and further that, it's in the environment of there's no condition. I am all about who you are, and I love it, and I'm just so proud of you and the man you're becoming, the husband, the father. I'm just pumped about finding another human that is pumped about finding out why we're human.
Sure.
And there's no contingencies. Like I love the idea of being wrong and being called out on something, and because it furthers my understanding of who I am.
Yeah. And
the reason why you and I don't have a lot of points of conflict is because we both have this kind of exploratory, you know, just like this kid's mentality of like, I can't wait to be wrong because that means I'm understanding more, you know? Yeah. And that's why I'm so secure in my ability to say, to simultaneously blame Jesus for the downfall of humanity, but also look at him and be like, well, he was the greatest teacher. And the reason why he's had the greatest impact is because he tapped into the greatest power of what it means to be human. And he said, I'm the son of God.
Yeah.
I believe we're all daughters and sons of God, whatever that means. We're all birthed from something supernatural, I hope. And we're not just some accident. So I want to hear more specifically about the specificity, not about you and I, but I want to hear more because you lightly touched and grazed over, not to put you on the spot. I want you to talk about your marriage.
well, I will. But before we move on, I want to talk about one thing, just the opposite about what you just said. And then what do you do when you have a friendship? Like we're talking about being in one where we're accepting and nice. What do you do if you've had a relationship with somebody that's hurt you and upset you? Like what does that, I mean, do you try to fix it? When do you bounce from the relationship? Just to be clear about that.
One of my favorite things to talk about, because it's so important, because I believe the quality of your life is in proportion to the relationship you have. Obviously we've established with yourself that needs to be the goal, but we are, as organisms in the petri dish of the cockfight of life, we are always, no matter how fucking strong we think we are and independent of people. And I heard Joe Rogan say the other day, he's like, we want to say we don't care about what people say. And he's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We really care.
Yeah.
You have, if you're in the cockfight and someone's beak just takes out like your left wing, like you're like, it's whatever. I got another wing. It's whatever. Like we're emotional creatures. Therefore we deeply, it will always care to some degree about what people are saying about us. And so the relationships that are killing you and are dysfunctional, and whether or not you should flirt with them continually, I want you to answer it. And then I will, if you want to hear more about my thoughts about it, because I've shared way too many of my thoughts already. What do you think? And how have you dealt specifically? And after that, we'll get into the whole marriage thing. But the relationships you have, and I kind of asked earlier, the relationships you have today and the ones that you have intentionally or unintentionally had to let go or chose to let go of, how have you played, how have you survived that cockfight with all those people?
Well, I think it's a matter of, like I was saying earlier, it's assessing your relationship to the sense of what are you in it for, what are they in it for, to the best of your knowledge. So like if you're sitting there with somebody and they have the ability to hurt you, obviously you care about what they think, right? So I think the question comes to you, why do you care? Should you care? Do they have your best intentions at heart? Is this relationship based on like love and life, or is it based on you both just trying to suck something from each other? Right? I want something out of you, you want something out of me. You're not giving it to it, it's pissing me off. Right? Where I think it has to come down to, one, what am I in this relationship for? Is there a need that I'm trying to get from somebody here that's maybe unhealthy? So I think that's square one. Square two is if you feel like it's pure and you genuinely love and care about this person, you're trying to be there and give it to them, you care about what they think. Yeah, that's good. But what's the other person? Are they in it too? And then if it is, yeah, then you work through it. You figure it out. Like, dude, that bugged me what you said. Like that hurt. Like I care. Like if you called me an asshole right now or something, right? Like dude, yeah, that hurt because I feel like coming out of the environment and it would hurt, right? Because I've assessed both sides here to the best of my ability, right? Compared to, you might need to just walk away from somebody if you feel like you're in it for the wrong reasons or they're in it for the wrong reasons, right? And I think that's the key point when it comes to stuff like that is one, where you're at, what's your expectations, what are you trying to get from this thing, right? Because if you're in it to get something, it's kind of shitty in the first place. It should only come out of the sense of like, I'm in it to give, and it's kind of like this yin yang thing of like, I'm giving but I'm gaining, and it's the both. It's got to be both. Otherwise, it's screwed from the get-go. You should walk away from it, because if you're just in it to gain something, if you're in it just because you're trying to get this person's acceptance, then there's something that needs to be figured out inside you.
But specifically with friends that are no longer in your life, and whether it's family members, your wife, at what point have you taken the initiative to, because this is such an easy thing to talk about, but the actual actions necessary to live out the discussion is so brutal. And telling someone, whether it's verbally or non-verbally, telling someone you can't be a part of my life anymore because my life needs to be healthy for you, and you can't be in it anymore. What if that person's not ready to be out of your life because they're still wanting to take from you, or I mean, it's very complex, because I believe there's a lot of, every relationship that is sustained, if it's the degree of health is gauged off of the codependency. If you're independent, you're an independent person that's healthy in a relationship. You don't have to be codependent. You're like you and I are simultaneously living our lives, not trying to take anything. We're trying to give to each other. But unhealthy relationships become dysfunctional when certain people aren't upholding their patterns of behavior that were good at one point.
Sure.
So how do you assess whether or not, because I'll just be the first to be vulnerable. I literally cannot communicate. Well, for obvious reasons, I haven't seen or talked to my dad in years. My mom and siblings, like the level of how bananas and provoking it makes my soul, and how sad it makes me to communicate with them, and the level of attempts I've made to bring resolution to chaos in my family. I'm like, I had to come to the conclusion where I had to have the courage, and this is going to sound odd, but I had to have the courage to finally say, if I'm going to learn to love me and know me, I can't have them in my life, because it provokes so much sadness for me. And I finally cut the umbilical cord of telling myself, because they're my family, they're my blood, they have to be a part of my life, right? And I finally just manned up and be like, I can't do it anymore. It's kind of a ... thing. In the future, I'd love to see my nieces and my nephews and my siblings and have a relationship. But I know for me to manifest my highest version of myself, I'm still too dysfunctionally codependent on the past.
Yeah. No. And I think it ties back to what we were talking about last week with grief, dude. Like you have to grieve the process, the relationships that aren't what you hoped or want or need or whatever. There's a part of that, especially when it's family, because family is the one relationship where it's like they're supposed to, right? They're supposed to be this, they're supposed to be that. They're the ones that are the loyal ones that are always there. We're blood, we're tied, right? But you are and you aren't. Like you have the same blood, but at the same point, like there's some people that just need to walk away from some family members just because of that. But that doesn't mean that it's forever. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a sense that you're physically tied to them because you have the same blood going through your veins, and that's always going to be that way. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to be emotionally or spiritually tied to them when there are people like that. And it's like you look at where you're at with your family and stuff right now, and who's to know what'll happen in the future. But the key point is like if you don't grieve that and work through it, you can never be around them because they're only going to be a manifestation of that lack of acceptance and love that you never really got from them. Mm-hmm. And you know, and the more you grieve it, you could see you could see them for who they are. And mm-hmm. there's a part where you detach enough where you can learn to love and be there. And that's a really difficult process. But I don't know, man. When it comes to family and stuff like that, it's a really tricky road, right? Because I feel like it's something where we feel so obligated to like make it work, and sometimes you force it when you shouldn't. And that's the key point is learning to have as much insight into your soul to ask yourself, what do you need right now? And if that's all if you're around them like that and they're causing that to come out of you, yeah, you do need to separate. And there's nothing wrong with that, even though people might say like, dude, that's horrible or whatever else, but there's nothing wrong with that. The whole point is like searching your soul, asking yourself, what do you need to be free from this? And being open to the process of what it takes to heal yourself. And then once you're healed and you're okay being you, then you could figure out how to do something like that. And it's not, your heart's desire is always going to want to be there, especially when it comes to your family. You know, you want your brother in your life, your sister, just like I want my brother and my dad, my mom, and everybody else. Like I'm always going to want that. But it has to be done in balance, right? That's the whole point of talking about how relationships really work is there's a balance that comes from. There's a give and there's a gain. Mm-hmm. And if it's way out of balance, then yeah, there's a period where you do have to step away and reassess. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're just in it and like you're just that little boy, like, dude, love me, man, love me, come on, love me, and they don't, and you just you can't help but feel like crap. Yeah. Right. So yeah, there's a point where there is grieving that needs to come for those relationships that aren't the way we want them to be. Yeah. And who knows what will happen in the future.
Well, I mean, I appreciate your honesty, man. So how does that translate into what I asked earlier is how does that evolve into, because you and I are similar in the sense we've been with our wives for, you know, over a decade plus. And yep. you and I are utterly different people mm-hmm. today than who we were at the beginning of those relationships.
Very true. Yep.
And I feel the craziness that I am and the roller coaster of my life I've been on, you know, there's some degree, you know, like I'm compassionate and sympathetic to my wife in that I exhaust myself and I am a constant daily roller coaster of bananasness in my pursuit. There's an equal opposite reaction in life. My life was void of value and love and meaning for so long. And I am living the recoiling slingshot effect of, well, let's fucking figure out what life's about now. You know, so it's intense, man. Yeah. It's so intense. Yeah. And that's why so many people are vacant from my life. And I compassionately barely let people in because I'm like, yeah, it looks awesome. It looks fun. There's so much energy and power I have in me. But I actively have to push people away because I'm like, I will exhaust you because I don't know how to not care about things that matter. And the likelihood that you will mirror that is less than none. Mm. And when you come into my atmosphere, you will get fatigued because you will start asking yourself all these heavy questions that I don't know how to not ask myself every day. Yeah. So I compassionately pretty much live a monk life lifestyle in isolation. So for you in your marriage, the person you were to the person you are, the level of compassion you have to give to your wife for grieving the Ryan that was, and the belief system you had at the beginning, and the perceived, like, at some point your wife's like, this is false advertising.
Yeah.
Ryan was going to seminary and going to learn how to be the leader of the next mega church, and we were going to ride off into the sunset on, the unicorn of Jesus. So that's not what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you are.
Yeah.
This is the Ryan you've learned to love and accept today in
Mm-hmm.
your journey. How does the functionality and the survival and the growth and the blossoming of your marriage sustain, and what does that look like?
That is
Sorry ahead of time.
No, dude, I appreciate the question because it is a really good one. I think to start with, after going through this whole process and everything from where I was when I got married to where I am now, I'm still 100% believer in marriage, and I don't think it's some archaic system that you do it religiously out of because God tells you to. I think there is some incredible beauty that comes out of it. And to start with, when both of us got married young, I got married really young, and and in getting married, you realize how much you just don't understand, and how you were buying into this truth that is just not real, where it's just you think you're gonna get married, it's gonna be so peaceful, and you have this person that's just gonna be with you ride or die.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so much different than that. So when you get married, especially in my situation, and to have so much change happen within 10 years is crazy. Where it gives, I look at it and I empathize with my wife, because I look and see who I was to where I am now, and it's crazy, where there's just a lot of that process where grieving is the word that would have to come from it, right? Where she'd have to realize this person isn't that person anymore, but there's parts of that person that I still love and see, right? Where he is that person. Some of the other parts that I thought were him aren't there, right? And the part that I love about marriage is you make this commitment to each other, right? And when things go that way, when they're different than what you think, when they're harder, when you have to work through this stuff, it's when you lean on that commitment. And otherwise, I feel like you just run away, right? If you were just dating, right? If you and your wife and me and my wife were just dating, and you didn't have any obligations or responsibilities, you'd probably just walk away, be like, this person isn't for me. But when you're married, it forces you to figure it out, because it means something more. You made a vow, you made a commitment, and that's something that's powerful. And the thing that's powerful about that, and this is the beautiful side, there's an ugly side of it too. The beautiful side of it is you chose each other, and you continually choose each other, and stay committed to each other to figure it out. And that's the part where you could take two people that are so different, and you're dancing with it, learning, and it's teaching you so much about yourself. Going back to that quote about how relationships could be the sacred places, it becomes that, where you will have no one in your life that can teach you something your way your wife can, if you can make your relationship that, where it becomes this place of healing and growth, which it can be in marriage if it's right. That's the beautiful side. But the ugly side of it is when it becomes, I don't want to be this person that I'm chained to. What do I have to do to take the chain off? And you start resenting that chain, and you feel like you're getting dragged through shit. That's when it turns ugly.
Yeah.
But I think for me, in my marriage, it's looking at it and saying, when all this stuff started to change for me, and I see that I was the person who really changed compared to my wife, who has changed a bunch as well, but not, I don't think, as drastic, right? Where, she still has a lot of the same beliefs and stuff like that, where mine has changed tremendously. If I was going to lead that mega church or whatever, is I feel like more of the path where now it's way different. And looking at it now, where I'm so thankful for where I'm at, and I'm still thankful for where she's at, and the fact that we have used our relationship in a way to figure out so much about each other. And I'm just so thankful for her at this point, because she has chosen in our relationship to love me regardless of where she wants me to be. And that is such the key piece of this whole thing, because it could be so easy to be bitter and resentful of he violated the deal, right? Yeah. Where she's chosen to be like, no, I love this dude still. And there's times where I know she's just been like, I want to get away from you. You drive me nuts. I honestly want to be with someone else sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I don't doubt it going through everything we've gone through. But the point being is with marriage and where it's been is like it's allowed us to figure it out in a way that we've taken our vows seriously, and it's forced us to make it a place of like, so how do we reconcile some of these big things? And in doing so, it has been the grandest like teacher and growth mechanism, because I could learn to love and accept my wife as I see her right now, and it's something that is just so powerful for me, and it's even more powerful for me looking at her and where she's at, and that she's able to do that with me, considering how I feel like I'm the one who said violated the deal, on the whole Jesus movement. I'm going to do this whole thing, and like I'm the one who broke that and made it fall apart. Mm-hmm. So to me, the power in it is like what comes from it when you can have this loving relationship, when your marriage or your relationship with your partner isn't what you expected or want it to be, but you still choose to move forward and accept that person. And it's a really tough deal, and there's a lot to work through, because there's it brings a lot of resentment, especially when you feel chained to somebody. You feel like, this shouldn't have to be this way, or blah blah. It helps create that. But the thing about it is like going through it and figuring it out. This is a really long-winded answer, but it forces you to realize like where are those pieces of you where you are geared to resent, that you're geared to be bitter, and it forces you to like it just cleanses you of that. Yeah. And that's the part where I feel so thankful for it, because in going through it, like it as a growth mechanism, if I'm just looking selfishly, I don't know if there's any other way in my life for me to have grown as much as I've grown apart from my marriage.
No.
So that's where I think the beautiful side of it is. And I do think that it's something that is really misrepresented, and people will just say like they give up on marriage. They don't want to talk about it. It's just some archaic system that we don't need anymore. And to me, it's just like, no, man, like I'm so thankful for it. And like, that's what I try to talk to all my friends and stuff about, is like when they're getting married, is just try to help them see the side of it that's like we should cherish it. There is a side that we should cherish it, not just like half the dudes we see at work where they're just like, I hate my wife. They call her all the names behind her back. Yeah. And it's just like, I've been divorced 3 times. And it's like, dude, that sucks for you, man. You missed out on this beautiful thing that you could have had. And, maybe it just never was a possibility, or, but it's just like, I look at it and I'm just like, man, I want to breathe life into this thing, because I feel like it's dying all around us.
Yeah. Well, the point I want to highlight is, well, first and foremost, thank you so much for just massively vulnerable and honest. It's not easy to talk about that. And, I know your wife is infinitely, regardless of what she's felt at different times about the contract you guys established and what was and what's not. And I know on some level, however much she acknowledges it now, and I know she will continue to acknowledge, like, she is an infinitely blessed woman to have your partnership in life, because you are relentlessly exploring the thing that is the bread and butter, the fundamental fuel of having a marriage survive, which it stems from that quote, is it facilitates the environment for you to be constantly bombarded with what you're not. All of your flaws are brutally megaphoned through the mirror reflection of what your wife or whoever combination of marriage you have, whatever gender you are, it doesn't matter what marriage does. If it's between a man and a man, a woman and a man, gender fluid. I mean, there's like 19 names for genders now, and regardless of what combination of human you feel you are, and the partner that you've decided to live life with, what that facilitates is an environment for you to see constantly what you are not. And if you have the courage to face that over and over, in the openness and the humility to say, if I am not this, if this is something I need to work on in my ego and my selfishness, if you have the courage to do that, what you can create is so much meaning and fulfillment. I think that's what you and your wife are experiencing now and are working through, because it takes so much courage to say, I accept the fact that I'm a selfish bastard. And I'm willing to look in the mirror and say, every fight we've had, a portion of it is mine.
Yeah.
No matter how much defense I have had towards defending my side of how much it's your fault and not mine, and the issues we've had are your fault and you created it. And no matter what degree you said very humbly, like, I'm the one that created the chaos, and she's had to kind of come along for the ride of evolution of Ryan. But there's something that, like you said, the sacredness of it is what it is it's like, scripturally it talks about becoming one, that union. It's that being in a petri dish of utterly humble nakedness, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that at some point you stop dating. At some point you stop pretending to be something you're not.
Yeah.
And it slowly seeps in all the things that you've tried to hide through the dating process. And that Bachelor, that show, that mentality of like dating and relationships it's this week we'll go to Paraguay, next week we'll go to, Jumanji. And, it's like all these ridiculous settings. And that's TV, and what we're entertained by is a reflection of what we desire.
Yep.
And we desire to have an unrealistic expectation of what self-love and marriage is and everything. But the reality is, the real beauty is being with someone not in Jumanji or Paraguay or New Zealand. The beauty is to have found someone that is you can be in the environment that is the opposite of that, be in financial chaos, physical chaos, ailments, all the horrific things that hit real life, and to be with someone who said, like you said, the sacred commitment, like till death do us part, that dying love. It's who you can become if you press into it is something you never would have recognized unless you've had the courage. Because what happens when you go marriage to marriage and just keep kind of like island hopping in a Bachelor-esque way to different partners and saying, oh, when I find this type of person, my marriage will be amazing. It's like, no, you trade another human. So that means you trade a different set of problems and a different set of chaos. And there is some level of, grass is green on the other side, but ultimately it's where you water it. And I think you're living out the beauty of nurturing and nourishing the weeding out of the garden of that your marriage is, and thinking it was like just this tulip festival of everything. And the closer you got, you're like, holy shit, these are just weird dandelions. These are weeds. And you gutted them. And now what I'm saying is, your wife has such a gift in your energy, because you're saying, yeah, they were dandelions. But what's so rad is we can uproot this. I can find my truth, and I'm responsible to find my truth because I'm living my own life. Yes, we're married, but you're responsible to find your own truth. And we're not supposed to be codependent. Yeah. You're supposed to find out who you are and love that. I'm supposed to find out who I am and love that. And in that, we can be in the same environment day after day after day and have this beautiful, unconditional transaction. And that's what I think marriage is supposed to move towards, is the manifesting of enough self-love to where your needs are so fucking met because I don't need anything from you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens in a marriage, and that's the environment that could happen. But you first have to marry yourself. You have to go inside of yourself and be so unified with what you are that the physical marriage with a partner doesn't need to fuel who you are independent of it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's this like crazy inverted concept of, so I can find internal peace and meaning through an environment with another person, so much so that, like, I don't need them and they don't need me, but we've created so much life out of this. It's bananas, dude.
Yeah.
How complex it is, but it all stems from knowing self and accepting self. And what you're doing with your wife now is, you're like, I know who I am to a degree, and I'm going to continue exploring that. And I hope to facilitate enough patience and compassion for you to fall in love with the true me.
Yeah. I like that idea, dude. But it makes me think too, like, you think of marriage where you're committing to somebody like that, right? Where I feel like, when it comes to just relationships in general, where I feel like it's almost inevitable that if we're around somebody and we're able to really get to see them and are secure in ourselves, you can't. I feel like love is just something that is just inevitable eventually. You know, I could think of being around like the most bitter person and how hard it would be, and they could, there's a book called Same Kind of Different as Me, where this it's about this black man from the South who can barely speak English very well, and there's a part in the book where he comes to this bitter old dude who just calls him every name in the book, treats him like just dog shit, right? And he goes there for like a year, just like helping him. He's like bedridden and stuff like that. And eventually it cracks. Like this dude cracks and love breaks through. Like this dude's constant, like just subtle love for the man, right? And to me, it just shows this power of what is like underneath us all and how connected we are. We all wear this personality form, this ego, try to separate ourselves so much that I think what the beauty and power of relationship, when you can get to it, is you realize how connected all of us are, and how it goes back to what we're talking about with love, how in a sense we are all one. And you can realize that the more we form this connection, and the more this connection's real and true, the more all that stuff that gets in the way of, like, you think of like this tractor beam that like connects you and me and pulls you closer together, all that shit that's pulling you apart fades away. I feel like it's inevitable that you're going to just creep in and love and connect to that person. But I just think that it's so hard because we get in the way so much, where we have so many expectations and wants and needs and desire, out of relationships that we have in our lives. It doesn't matter if it's someone you're married to, or if it's the grocery cashier, right? Like they're like, if you're around somebody enough, I feel like that's just the inevitable piece. That's the part that's just like, you go to magnetism. The magnetism is there. It's just, there's so many things that keep you away from it. But once you are there and you're present and you're real with it and you can both let go of that, it's inevitable. And that's the part that I like to think about when it comes to relationships, is that no matter the person and how much they can drive me nuts or how much I connect to them right off the bat, is realizing that that's there behind the scenes. Yeah. Because that's the part that helps me realize that we are so connected, and how this love force, this you could call it God or whatever it is behind there, that it's just, you realize like how much everything is working together and stuff like. And to me, it's just like where I realize, and it's just, it makes me want to figure out how I could be more secure myself, so that I can help give and help other people see that too. So when you're talking about your family, right, that's so hard to be around, right? Because it's like that connection. You realize it, you feel it in your soul that like you want to be connected to that person, but you can't because there's all this stuff in the way. It's realizing that, yeah, that's there for everyone, dude. Some people more than others because we look at as family members where we feel like we're supposed to or something, right? But it's there. And there's nothing wrong with it being there, because that's just one of the reality that we're in. And to me, it just helps when you understand that, and you could talk about it from a place of freedom and understanding that, like, I love myself. I know I want to love these other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And that way you can be sad if you're not connected with your family, because you should be sad. And that's the thing, where it's just like, you're not judging yourself or beating yourself up about it. You just ask yourself, so how do you make it happen? And whatever person comes into your life, whether it's, whether it's just some acquaintance, or if it's a family member, or if it's your wife, it's a matter of listening to your soul and asking yourself, like, okay, right now my soul's telling me I want to be connected to this person. How do I do that? Yeah. And that's the core of what we're talking about here, is one, realizing that that's there. That's underneath the shell of what's going on. And then two, how do you make it happen? Yeah. Right? Because marriage is the way of, like, you're just ka-chink into the chains. We're like, we're going to figure it out now. Yeah. Compared to a family member, compared to an acquaintance, where you really don't have to make it happen.
Yeah. And then once you procreate with that person, regardless of how much love there is or lack thereof, like once you create another life, the complexity of that relationship infinitely evolves. And I think that's where I have to have some vulnerability, and I'm not pumped about it, but I am in a very I don't know, I want to be tactful, like untraditional dynamic in the sense of, and I want to respect privacy of my wife, but whoever hears this is, I'm sure, is constantly thinking about who the fuck can marry that human being and live in the same household. So. I'm kidding, but you know, it's I know I'm bananas in a lot of ways and how extreme I am with thoughts, and cohabitating with me, let alone having a conversation with me, is intense, and I'm very aware of that. But I've literally, I'm just to give structural context, and I want to be respectful, but I mean, I've lived in my own room for like coming up on 4 years. We haven't lived in the same room, and the reasons behind that doesn't really fucking matter because I want to respect some privacy. But that's just to give like a significant context of like traditional American marriages. I mean, in other cultures, like families sleep in the same bed, and like it's every culture is different. But like in the Western culture, like the fact that I have my own room and my own bat cave and live independent is, there's a lot of reasons. But my wife and I are, not just because I've been on such a radical journey the last 12 years we've been together, but like we are just, since day one, have been polar opposite human beings in the world. And the reason we got together was, I mean, there was a lot of, we were that traditional young, like, I was broken, there's parts of her that were broken, and we facilitated some kind of fulfillment and needs in each other codependently, and created a marriage out of that, and created a life. And I can tell you how not gooder I am at relationships through that biographical journey. And the thing I want to highlight is the uniqueness that I live with, and how different we are, how I've been able to manifest and find some level of peace amidst the chaos in a marriage, and is realizing like the superpower that I have within that dynamic is I stopped needing her to define me. And I stopped fighting with her. Is there still fights? Hell yeah. Have they lessened? Absolutely. But what I mean by that is, like, I no longer am defensive of what I think she thinks I am. I stopped trying to justify what I am to her. I stopped trying to justify the reason why we're even having a fight. Instead, I just realized that I am who I am, and I've made peace with that, and our perspectives are different. And if there needs to be conflict, there needs to be conflict. And I extend compassion. And instead of defending my point to death, which unfortunately for her, I can psychoanalyze the hell out of anything and make it look like it's not my fault. I have now chosen to be compassionately quiet and realize if there's tension with her, or if someone at work, or whoever I'm fighting with, there's tension because they're feeling something and they need to feel it, and I no longer fight that. Because ultimately what you're fighting is the need to be and feel what you are. And I've learned to love myself to the degree that I give myself compassion, I give myself patience, and I deal with that after the fact. When I have a fight with her or someone, like, I don't fight. I'm just like, they need to process something, and I let them, and I give them compassion, and then I go, and I realize, I'm like, well, that was fucked up. That wasn't fair. But guess what? A million things all the time are not fair. It's how you perceive them and deal with them. So the level of ownership that I've taken with all the chaos, whether it's in the marriage or life, it's just, I always look in the mirror and say, how do I know my part in it? How do I give the compassion in the relationship with myself? And that's how you find peace as a fucking human being. Is knowing who you are and not needing other people to tell you who you are in a marriage, in a friendship. So relationships, that's why that quote is so important. The environment it facilitates is an environment for you to explore the potential that your life doesn't have to be defined by others' opinions of you.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. And I love, it circles back to where we started. Which is beautiful. I mean, you got to be secure in yourself enough to really be able to have a relationship. Otherwise, you're just vampiring it, dude. So yeah, I think that's the way to look at it. It's just ask yourself, are you a relationship vampire?
Yeah.
You know, and realizing that, yeah, a lot of us start out that way. That's kind
Yeah.
of quite, it doesn't matter if you're a kid, that's how you start out. So
Yeah.
it's learning to realize, oh, it's maybe not the best way of doing it. So,
And one thing I want to add is, whether it's in the marriage or in a friendship or whatever, the way I have peace in it is, I literally, and this is going to sound like I'm trying to sound like a monk or whatever, or a nun, but I literally, genuinely, I look at relationships and connections with other people, and any transaction at work, I legitimately look at it from a place of, what can I give you?
yeah.
What can I give you? Because I don't need anything from you to be okay today. And that is the most powerful thing I could say about anything we've talked about in all the ridiculous things I've said today in the cockfight of life. When you realizing that there is no cockfight, there is no all the racism, all the tension, all the conflict in marriages and divorces, all the relationships breaking and fracturing and conditional love being exchanged, is it's all not real.
Mm-hmm.
And it stems from an inability to realize that your needs are only met within yourself. And the only thing you need to do is learn to love yourself. And until you learn to love yourself, you will always love people conditionally and from a taking place.
Yeah.
The human organism was created to give of self. In order to give self, you have to know self. Your life will be horrifically roller coastery until you realize that the roller coaster is because you don't know how to get off of it. There is no roller coaster. If you're in a state of being with self and accepting self, you're not going on a conditional love roller coaster with everyone saying, people can judge me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
People can think I'm crazy. Absolutely. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. It is.
Yeah.
But I actually know who I am. And I value that.
I think that's beautiful, dude. But it points it back to, like, I think such a great way of starting relationships is from that place of giving, and then in turn of being secure enough to start there that it turns to where you gain, right?
100%.
And that's how that yin yang forms, compared to where if it starts by getting and you're just trying to get, I feel like it just stays there.
100%.
So when you have that piece where you're coming from, that's how the balance forms in this relationship. Otherwise, it's just like trying to suck everything you can out of that person. So it's awesome. I think that's a great way to end the topic. Is just ask yourself, is that how you're starting relationships? Are you seeking to get or gain? It's as simple as that. And trying to start by giving out of a security and love that you're talking about from yourself. So I think you need to share your artwork for this week.
Oh, Jesus.
And then we can wrap her up.
Yeah. So this week is pretty abstract, but it's essentially the lactose intolerant astronaut his ship's kind of crashing in space in the Milky Way. It says, "I am the captain of my drowning relation spaceship," and there's a rocket of broken trust, a flying axe that's for some reason in space, and selfishness is on the blade with blood, and a jealousy bomb is coming at it. And the astronaut's thinking relationships are way too hard. The only solution is to run away from them, right? And it's a double meaning because the running away from them is the essential component to finding yourself. You need to run away from people for a while. You need to die to the idea that people are going to give you the fulfillment in life you need. And you'll never be able to find peace in life if you're conditionally approaching people to take something that they have to give you, apparently. So it's going into that kind of like stoic cave of realizing people aren't here to give me meaning. I'm here to find out where my meaning is found and then give.
Yeah.
And the things externally coming at us from jealousy and insecurities and broken trust, it's all those things that break you. They only break you to the degree you allow them to. So it's just taking ownership of your life and realizing that your life is yours, and it's only dictated and affected by other people to the degree that you allow it. Your life is your fault every day.
Yep. Well said, dude. Well, That does it for this episode. We'll be back again next week with something.
Oh, God.
Just wait and see. Thanks, everyone.
Righteous.